jana balabha girid baradari Gopi jana balabha girid baradari Yashoda Nandana Braja Janaranjana Yashoda Nandana Braja Janaranjana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jai Ho Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jai Gopi Jana Vallabha Girid Baradari Jai Gopi Jana Vallabha Girid Baradari Yashoda Nandana Braja Janaranjana Yashoda Nandana Braja Janaranjana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Srimad Bhagavatam, 3rd Canto, Chapter 31. The movements of the living entities, text 12. Is that what's on the board? Jantu uvacha Trasyopasannam avitum jagad ichyata Nanatanor bhuvi chalach charanaravindam. Soham vrajami sharanam yakuto bhayam me. Yene jasi katira darsya sato nurupa. Trasyopasannam avitum jagat ichchayata. Nanatanor bhavichalach charanaravindam. Soham vijami sharanam yakuto bhayam me. Yene jasi katira darsya sato nurupa. Tasyopasannam avitum jagat ichchayata. Nanatanor bhuvichalach charanaravindam. Soham vrajami sharanam yakuto bhayam me. Yene jasi katira darsya sato nurupa. Vaishnavis. Jantu vacha. The human soul says, Tasya, of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Upasannam, having approached for protection. Avitung, to protect. Jagat, the universe. Ichchaya, by his own will. Attananatano, who accepts various forms, moving on the earth. Chalat, walking. Charana aravindam, the lotus feet. Sa aham, I myself. Vrajami, go. Sharanam, unto the shelter. He, indeed. Akuta bhayam, giving relief from all fear. May, for me. Yena, by whom? Idrisi, such. Gati, condition of life. Adarshi, was considered. Asata, impious. Anurupa, befitting. Translation: the human soul says, I take shelter of the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who appears in his various eternal forms and walks on the surface of the world. I take shelter of him only because he can give me relief from all fear. And from him I have received this condition of life, which is just befitting my impious activities. Purport. The word chalach charanaravindam refers to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who actually walks or travels upon the surface of the world. For example, Lord Ramachandra actually walked on the surface of the world, and Lord Krishna also walked just like an ordinary man. The prayer is therefore offered to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who descends to the surface of this earth, or any part of this universe, for the protection of the pious and the destruction of the impious. It is confirmed in Bhagavad Gita that when there is an increase of irreligion and discrepancies arise in the real religious activities, the Supreme Lord comes to protect the pious and kill the impious. This verse indicates Lord Krishna. Another significant point in this verse is that the Lord comes, ichchaya, by his own will. As Krishna confirms in Bhagavad Gita, sambhavam yatma mayaya, I appear at my will by my internal potential power. He is not forced to come by the laws of material nature. It is stated here, ichchaya. He does not assume any form, as the impersonalists think, because he comes at his own will, and the form in which he descends is his eternal form. As the Supreme Lord puts the living entity into the condition of horrible existence, he can also deliver him. And therefore one should seek shelter at the lotus feet of Krishna. Krishna demands, give up everything and surrender unto me. And it is also said in Bhagavad Gita that anyone who approaches him does not come back again to accept a form in material existence, but goes back to Godhead, back home, never to return. Translation again. The human soul says, I take shelter of the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who appears in his various eternal forms and walks on the surface of the world. I take shelter of him only because he can give me relief from all fear. And from him I have received this condition of life, which is just befitting my impious activities. Om Agyanatimirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitang Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. This is always a very intriguing section of Srimad Bhagavatam when you first read it. You've never heard this information before of what it's like to be inside the womb. So at first it stuns you, doesn't it? And you're overwhelmed by how authoritative Srimad Bhagavatam is, that it can give you such stunningly insightful information about what the infant in the womb undergoes. If we ask any of the children here, do you remember what it was like inside your mother's womb? If we ask Dinanath, do you remember what it was like in Dina Dayala's womb? I asked him one time before, he says he can't remember. Can you remember Dinanath being born? No. This is the power of forgetfulness, which is the mercy of Maya. You forget all about the suffering so that you can once again immerse yourself in material activities and go through the whole process of birth and death again and again. How merciful Maya is, right? To cover your intelligence. And then we also read in the previous purport, and I'll ask the ladies who've had children about this. It is said, the Prabhupada is saying, it is said. In other words, some people say like this, but we'll hear testimony from the mothers. It is said that when a woman is having labor pains, she promises that she will never again become pregnant and suffer from such a severely painful condition. What do you say, Madhuri Amrita? Never? Did you say never again? He recorded it. You actually said never again. He thought that was going to be a stern reminder. Huh? And then what happened? 1 year later, she's thinking, one more time. Anyone else? Did you make that vow? Never again. Yes, Dina Dayala, Devi Dazi, did you make that vow? Never. Due to the pain of labor? Or what is it? Do they drug everyone up so much these days that it... You can choose. Uh-huh. You can choose if you want drugs or not. Did you choose the drugs? You wanted to... What about her Jayshree? Did you promise never again after your first one? What did she say? Can't hear. She has not had pain tolerance. She was okay. And did you, Achyuta Bhava? Well, it's interesting. Jayadev Kavi actually recorded his wife saying, I'll never go through this again. And it lasted 1 year. So it's very interesting, this information that Srimad Bhagavatam is giving. Did I miss any mothers there? Oh, Geetavali, were you a never-againer?
Well, I knew before I
You had no pain, so yeah, not so bad. You just relaxed and we're one with the moment. Marjorie, do you remember?
I was very fortunate. I enjoyed all 5 of my births.
All right, so Prabhupada says, it is said. That means some people say, and we've heard that some people did say. It was recorded. It's not that every child in the womb cries out to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Please keep that in mind. The fortunate child in the womb does that. Not every child. The fortunate child in the womb feels regret and knows this is my own doing, as we hear in today's verse. I take shelter of him only because he can give me relief from all fear. And from him I have received this condition of life, which is just befitting my impious activities. The blame is with us for having a body. The problems of material existence begin as soon as the spirit soul contacts a material body. So if you want to trace out where all the world's problems began, the root of it all is contact with the material body. And then once that contact is there, you identify with the sadvikar, the changes, the 6 changes of the body. And you think that's you, that's your life. We forget what we've been through. So when do you ever learn the lesson? You know how I often point out how people say, oh, life's a learning process. It's all about learning. Maybe you yourselves have said such a thing? Yes? But no one knows what the lesson is that you're supposed to learn. What kind of school is that? Someone asked Veda, you're going to high school now? It's all about learning, right? Maybe. Well, what's the lesson? And you can't answer. What are you supposed to learn? I don't know. It's just all about learning. People would think you're foolish. But this is how we approach life. Yeah, you just live and learn. What do you learn? There's an old saying that life must be lived forward, but it can only be understood backwards. Or another equivalent of that is hindsight is 20/20 vision. Everything is easily understood looking backwards. To some degree it's understood. But people repeat the same mistakes again and again because they lack wisdom. Not only do they lack wisdom, but they discount the existence of any authorized wisdom. Everything becomes someone's opinion, and you're free to accept whatever opinion suits you. In this way, no one knows anything, and we become accustomed to such ignorance. So what if no one knows? What's the big deal? Right now, we have our body, we have our senses. Isn't that what all counts? That's what counts. We have our assets, our net worth. We have our career. We have our relationships for however long they last. What else can you do? This is ignorance. So then the Bhagavatam raises the question, why is the spirit soul subject to such ignorance if the spirit soul is qualitatively equal with Krishna. There are some differences. And these differences are in quantity. And because of the difference in quantity between Krishna and us, we undergo a completely different experience than Krishna within the material world. There are two reasons. One of them is kind of easy to understand. The other takes some thought. Not speculation, but deep consideration of tattva, the bhakti knowledge. The first one, easy to understand, why there's a quantitative difference between you and Krishna, is that Krishna controls the material nature. Therefore, he never comes under the influence of it. It's his energy. For Krishna, actually, there's no material energy. It's all his spiritual energy. You know the example. Just like to the electrical engineer in the power station. He's just dealing with electricity. He or she is not dealing with heat from electric heaters or cold from air conditioners. He's just dealing with electricity. But the home users, the home consumers, they have the distinction. Oh, from this device is coming cool air, from that device is coming hot air. It's a simple example we've heard so many times, I hope, but we have to think about these examples. Krishna is the director of the material energy. It's his energy, mama maya, my maya. It doesn't affect Krishna. But we are not the directors of the material energy. Human civilization has tried to dominate nature, and look at the results. Nature is screaming, literally screaming at the human beings. What have you done? You can't go on like this. I'm not going to let you continue to live like this. So we're feeling the reactions of assuming a predator role. Not simply a dominator of nature, but a predator. We think nature is full of resources for our manipulation. And now we are getting the reactions. We don't see nature as sacred, as energy meant to be engaged in Krishna's service. But what's the second reason that's a little difficult to understand in terms of the quantitative difference between the Supreme Personality of Godhead and us? That second reason is a difference. It concerns a difference in knowledge. We have all, generally speaking, the qualities of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but in minute quantity. So you know the example. The drop of seawater has the same saltiness as the ocean. But the amount of salt in the drop can't compare to the amount of salt in the ocean. So in that way, there's qualitative equality, but not quantitative. So generally speaking, without going into the details of how actually it's 78% we have of the qualities of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But generally speaking, we have the qualities of the Supreme Absolute Truth, but they're in tiny amounts. One of the qualities of Krishna is full knowledge. But our possession of knowledge never equals the amount of knowledge that the Supreme Personality of Godhead has. So think about this. I don't know if you've ever considered. Our being duped by the material energy is symptomatic of our having not enough knowledge. Have you ever thought about that? Now, you might have finally come to the conclusion that you're tiny and therefore you're overpowered by the material energy. But what about your knowledge? You don't have enough knowledge because you're a speck. Just like we don't expect Balai to really know what he's doing in this world. He might think so, but we know he doesn't understand how to live. He's so dependent on his mother and his father. But he feels confident. Balai feels confident. He's got his toys. He's got his playthings. What more could you want in life? But we know he doesn't have sufficient knowledge. He's too young. Have we considered that besides being too small to control material nature, we also don't have the knowledge? So the Shastra explains that Krishna having full knowledge means he doesn't get fooled by his own energy. His knowledge prevents that. So it's not simply that Krishna is the director of the material energy, but it's also that he knows better. And because we are tiny, we don't know better. You can see that regarding teenagers. You would think that teenagers look around and see what everyone else has gone through, and they don't repeat the same mistakes. But they get overpowered by their hormones. They get overpowered by social conformity. But more than that, they're just not as smart as they think they are, and all the adults know that. Even though the adults made the same mistakes. The adults know. You're 13, you're 14, 15, 16, you don't know anything. You lack experience. You lack wisdom. Of course, the adults don't have any of that either. So just consider, we're undergoing the process of material existence because we don't have proper knowledge. On our own, disconnected from Krishna, we lack the knowledge to handle ourselves in material nature. Krishna never has that problem because his knowledge is full. So I don't think many of you have ever considered things from that angle. Another meaning of Krishna being Yogeshvara, the master of all mystic power, is that he's got the ability to handle the material energy without being influenced by it. That's yoga. At outreach events, I often explain to the audience an expanded definition of yoga because they simply think often that yoga means the physical postures, the hatha yoga, the pranayama, the breathing exercises. But I explain to them the full meaning of yoga is ability, expertise. Just like a bird's flying in the air or worms tunneling through the earth. That's yoga power. These creatures have a special ability. Ladies giving birth to children, that's a yoga power. The men don't have it. And Krishna is the reservoir of all yoga power. He has all abilities. And one of the yogic abilities is he can emanate the material energy and not be influenced by it. This is yoga. I don't know if you've ever considered like that. You can look at a rainbow, and both ends of the rainbow seem to rest on the earth. But if you try to find the place where the ends of the rainbow touch the earth, you'll never find that. Because actually the rainbow never touches the earth. So Krishna is like that. He's able to have a material energy without being tainted by it because of his yoga powers. Therefore he's known as Yogeshvara. And he wants to impart that same expertise to you. But we don't want to listen. It's like a parent wants to impart to the child so much education and world experience, but the child doesn't want to listen. If Jayashree says to Veda, let me tell you, Veda, I know how things work. You know, this is what happens, and that's what happens. And Veda, well, that's you. Your situation's different. I'm me, right? You're from another generation, ancient history. My friends and I know what we're doing. We talk it over in high school. We're serious. We discuss everything. We've got it all figured out. This is how we deal with Krishna. And as we heard in the purport, it sounds scary, maybe. Krishna demands, give up everything and surrender to me. We don't like that. Who is Krishna to demand, give up everything and surrender to him? But you have to understand who is Krishna. Give up everything means give up all your suffering. Surrender to me means accept full knowledge, full bliss, eternal existence. But if you don't know that, you get an attitude. Just like if our Jayashree says to Veda, just stop this and do that. Immediately the teenager gets an attitude. Oh, you can't tell me that. I'm not 8 years old anymore. I am 15. Do you say that, Veda? So we think we're going to lose. So when Krishna demands, give up everything and surrender to me, we think, give up everything. I've got so much that's valuable. I know what I'm doing. I've got talents. I've got skills. I'm me. And Krishna says, give up everything. He's demanding give up everything and surrender unto him. This sounds like I'm being mugged on a dark street at night. Some criminal approaches me. Give up your wallet. Give up your purse. This is what Krishna sounds like. This is why we need knowledge. This is why we need Srimad Bhagavatam to gradually erode this illusion we have that I possess so many valuable things and Krishna wants to take it away. Oh, my wonderful attachments. And he says, surrender to him. What's he got to offer? Of course, with knowledge, you begin to understand that we have nothing of value, and Krishna has unlimited value to offer. So this is our attitude due to contact with the material body. And once we contact the material body, our original knowledge is covered. That's why, as the Bhagavatam will say in the 4th canto, it appears that the soul has become lost. Just like when the clouds cover the whole sky, it appears that the sun no longer exists. Of course, the sun always exists, but it's lost because of the clouds, because of the fog. We were speaking about how the fortunate child in the womb offers prayers. How did I get into this situation? It's my own fault. Remember earlier, you might not have been here for class, or you may not have read this for a long time, but the child in the womb can remember his or her past 100 births. You might say, well, that's pretty cool. Yeah. No, it is agonizing to remember clearly all the suffering that you went through for 100 births. So you grieve very wretchedly. This is verse 9. The child thus remains just like a bird in a cage, without freedom of movement. At that time, if the child is fortunate, he can remember all the troubles of his past 100 births, and he grieves wretchedly. What is the possibility of peace of mind in that condition? So this is what's going on for the fortunate child in the womb. Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Sarvasya chaham hridi sanivishto matasmiti jnanam apovanam cha. From me, as the super soul in your heart, comes all knowledge, remembrance, and forgetfulness. So some children can remember 100 births, all that they've gone through, all their life experiences. There are things that you would like to forget about this lifetime, right? Oh, why did I do that? Oh, I can't believe I did that. What was I thinking? What was I not thinking? Oh, why did I do that? Oh, never again. Oh, I can't believe it. What about 100 births? You remember the mistakes you made for 100 births. You remember you're going through birth and death for 100 births. Now we can't even remember the birth in this lifetime. And we don't want to think about death, the end of this lifetime. Forgetfulness is the essential characteristic of the illusory energy. And we take it as a benediction, right? You don't remember being born. You don't remember dying before. Oh, what's the problem? Just enjoy the now. How are you feeling right now? Are you happy right now? Are you getting what you want right now? How are your relationships? Is the one you're with truly your beloved for the moment? Could you be doing better? What about your job? Are you working in a way that brings out your passions? Do you have a job that fulfills you? What about your life? Is your life fulfilling? Are you passionate about living? This is what the focus is, right? We have this greed, and it's not the lolium that Rupa Goswami talks about, the greed for love of Krishna. We have this greed to enjoy the moment. This is the great gift of Western so-called civilization. You can't think much about the past, you can't think much about the future, but right now, I should be happy right now. If not right now, then at least the next weekend. That's it, right? And there's so much pressure on you. Have you noticed this, Veda, in high school? So much pressure. Come on, Veda, get into it. What are you going to do this weekend? You're coming out with us? My mother won't let me. Right? Who can hold up against this pressure? And so in this way, the forgetfulness increases. Even for the older devotees. Why just the teenagers? The older devotees get so caught up in routine, work, and family affairs, and paying the mortgage, paying the car payments, on and on and on. And so, what's the first thing you do? As an unfortunately too typical householder, the hearing and chanting slips away. First it becomes very mechanical, and then you say, well, what's the point in chanting mechanically? Just stop chanting. And I'll start again when I have the bhakti urge. You may have heard that one before, right? The routine just drowns us. So once again, forgetfulness sets in like a fog. And it seems normal after a while. This is amazing how all these catastrophes within the womb, the previous death, forgetting our spiritual practices, it all happens in such a way that it seems normal. That is the benediction of Maya. You can just go to sleep in terms of your consciousness. Lord Kapila Dev explains something very interesting. Earlier in the third canto, he says, Janto vai baba etasmin yam yam yonam anuvaj. He says the amazing thing about material existence is that no matter what body the spirit soul takes, the conditioned soul takes, he or she thinks, this is normal. I'm this body, whatever. And this is the way life is. No matter what kind of body you take, you feel at home in your body. You don't feel the ludicrous contrast that I am spirit soul. What am I doing in a material body? You don't feel that. Maybe some of you remember as kids a glimpse. I remember I was 4 years old, 5 years old, I think mainly 4 years old. I was thinking, where have I landed? What is this place? Maybe others, some of you can remember thinking like that when you were little. What's going on? I landed on another planet. What is this? What's going on here? But then the process of socialization takes over. And you should go to school. You should prepare for your career. You should have fun. You should make money. Have a few friends. That becomes your all in all. Help society become a better place somehow, some way. Live a full life and then die. It'll be all right. Leave something behind for your children and you've done your duty. We think this is life because we're drowning in an ocean of forgetfulness. Then, when we want to think about Krishna, we make the mistake of thinking, he's walking on the earth, I'm walking on the earth, guess what? We're all the same. Lord Ram walks through the forest of Ayodhya. Krishna and Balaram walk through the forest of Braj. I'm walking in the Waitekaris. Why? Do you see a difference? Obviously, Krishna is an ordinary person. What about the lotus feet? Isn't the lotus flower a material object? So why does the Shastra always describe Krishna in terms of the lotus? Lotus feet, lotus face. Because if you've seen a first-class lotus flower, they're the most beautiful thing. But comparing Krishna's face and feet to a lotus flower doesn't mean that Krishna's face and feet are material. What the Shastra is just giving you a handle on the situation, using something that you may be familiar with to get a glimpse of Krishna's unlimited beauty. So the proof is not the allegory. The allegory is just giving you an indication. So again, we have the problem. I walk, Krishna walks. Which leads you to another problem. Okay, I'm in my heart, and Krishna's also in my heart. It must be even Steven here. This is why knowledge is required. It's like a little kid. It's like Dinanath thinking, I eat lunch, my mother eats lunch, so we're all the same. Why is she the parent? She eats, she walks, I eat, I walk. It's all the same, right, Dinanath? What's the difference? Why does she tell me what to do? When she eats, I eat, she walks, I walk. What makes her the Lord and Master of my life? And why does she demand that I do what she says? He's probably thinking, fortunately, I took birth in New Zealand where it's against the law for parents to spank their kids. Due to pious activities, I took birth in a place where I can't be spanked. So what's the difference between her and me? This is the same attitude that we apply to Krishna if we're influenced by Mayavad notions. And that influence doesn't have to be so conscious. Basically, impersonalism is the default position in the material world. Just like you know from your apps on your phone or on your laptop or desktop, there are default settings. If you want to change those settings, you've got to go into your control area and untick this box or tick that box. But the way things come, the factory presets, those are the defaults. So the default position for material existence is impersonalism. It takes countless births to accept subordination to Krishna. Krishna himself says this in Bhagavad Gita. Bahunam jamanamante, gyanavam mam prapajate. After many births and deaths, you finally admit, I am subordinate. It's like Dinanath denying that he has a mother. Again and again, someone asks you, do you have a mother? No, I'm me. I'm good to go as I am. Do you have a father? Where's Gopinath? Who is that? Some guy who thinks he knows everything? Let him pay the bills, but he's got nothing to do with me. Do you do that, Dinanath? But this is what we do in terms of understanding our relationship with Krishna. So therefore the acharyas make the point. It takes many births, hundreds of births, just not for love of Krishna, but just to accept the fact that we're subordinate. This is how immersed in illusion we are. This is how arrogant we are. So that's why Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, even for the philosophers it takes hundreds of births. Gyanavam mam prapajate. For the Gyanis who are trying to figure it all out. And people today mostly are not trying to figure it all out. But even for the Gyanis who are trying to do that, hundreds of births before they conclude Vasudeva Sarvamiti. Everything is the energy of Lord Vasudeva. So again, we're dealing with this thick fog of illusion which seems so normal to us. But by reading and studying these prayers, by the living entity in the womb, we start to get a glimpse into what we're up against. We're up against something so powerful we can't cope on our own. We have to take shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And that is the purpose of the whole bhakti process, taking shelter. And that's what's going on. Jantur Uvacha, the human soul says, I take shelter of the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who appears in various eternal forms. It's not that the impersonal Brahman assumes a form, and that form walks around on the earth and provides a very exalted object of our meditation. This is what impersonalists think. Ultimately, there is the oneness which has material manifestations, and the most glorious material manifestation of the oneness is Krishna, Rama, and so forth. These material forms that have appeared from the impersonal cloud, so to speak, provide such a wonderful object of meditation for you to develop your understanding that you are the Supreme. You need these meditational devices to focus on. But then when you become sufficiently advanced, you kick away these highest material objects, these highest material devices for you to meditate on. You don't need them. Just like you use a ladder to get to a top level, and then when you're on the top level, you throw the ladder away. Because now I am the top. So you may say, why do we hear all this again and again in the Srimad Bhagavatam? I've got it. I understand. Krishna's a person. Yeah, no problem. But guess what? Impersonalism is the default position in the material world. And the more you understand how you're being influenced by it, the better you can understand Krishna. We've got to go into our operating system and change the boxes that are ticked. We've got to make a special effort. Otherwise, we will rely on impersonalism in our dealings with other devotees, in our dealings with the world, and in our dealings with Krishna. And we do want to develop love for Krishna. That will be impossible unless we subject ourselves to a daily process of hearing and chanting about Krishna. The illusory energy is too powerful. The forgetfulness is too omnipresent. The impersonalism is the default position. Ordinarily, it's impossible for us to get out of this condition. But we have taken shelter of Krishna as Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. That taking shelter of Krishna as Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu makes everything possible, even in this age of the densest darkness. So the soul, the human soul in the womb, is saying, I'm in the arrangement of I'm in the womb by the arrangement of Maya. That's why I'm in the womb of my mother. But I'm realizing there's someone else here with me, and I offer my obeisances to that personality who's also here in the womb. But what? That person is unaffected by the womb. That person is changeless. This is another characteristic of Krishna's being friendly to all living entities. Whatever body you take, Krishna goes there with you. You become affected by the body. Krishna is never affected by his being within the body along with you. So no matter what abominable life form you take, Krishna goes with you as the super soul. So this particular spirit soul, fortunate, is realizing someone is here with me and I offer my obeisances to him. Furthermore, this super soul that's with me is perceived because I have a repentant heart. What does it mean to have a repentant heart? To regret your mistakes so much that you don't repeat them. If you repeat them, how can you be repentant? How can you have real regret if you just repeat the same nonsense? So this knowledge is very crucial for us. And by assimilating this knowledge again and again, we can then relish Krishna's pastimes. That's why the Bhagavatam is taking us step by step up to Krishna's smiling face in the 10th canto. It's done methodically so that we don't confuse Krishna as an ordinary person, whether we do it consciously or unconsciously. And most of us, at least here in this room, will do it unconsciously. For example, why is it that we think Krishna cannot give me the pleasure and happiness and fulfillment that I want in the quantity that I want? Why is it we think that way? Have you ever got to the bottom of it? You could say, well, because we don't trust Krishna enough. True. We don't know enough about Krishna. True. But the bottom line is, we don't think Krishna can give us our necessities in terms of personal fulfillment because we think unconsciously he's a product of material nature. Remember, impersonalism is the default position. So our default position is always there in our operating system, whether we know it or not. Maybe sometimes you've had a problem with your smartphone, you've had a problem with your desktop or laptop, and you can't figure out why is it acting this way. And you call someone who knows, and they say, get into the settings. See if a certain box is ticked. And you do that, and hey, that solved everything. I didn't know that. Why didn't someone tell me that before? All I had to do is go into the control panel or whatever your operating system is and get underneath the whole thing and just untick one box or tick another box and everything works. So this is what we're like trying to cope with the ignorance that is unconsciously there in our life. And it will be there without a methodical daily regimen. It's not that, oh, I didn't chant so much today. Oh, I've been chanting lousy rounds for a while, and I haven't opened a book for a week or two, but that's okay. I've still got my neck beads on. I'm saying Hari Bol when I pass by devotees, and hey, life goes on. The illusory energy does not take vacations. Raghunath Das Goswami makes a prayer that's very, is it Raghunath Das or Sanatan Goswami? One of the 6 Goswamis. I've served the illusory energy so slavishly, so faithfully. Nevertheless, it doesn't give me any holiday, even though I've rendered such service. Just like, what's the law in New Zealand? If you work a full-time job, is there some law that you have to have a certain amount of holiday time? 4 weeks. But Raghunath Das Goswami or Sanatan Goswami is saying, I've served slavishly 24/7 and I get no break. 0 break. This is the paradox of the illusory energy. No respite, no vacation, no holiday. So we think we can put aside our hearing and chanting focus because Maya will leave me alone. I'll get back to it. I will get back to it. How about next month will be better? Or in 10 years? Or when I'm 70? I'll get back to it. I'm a devotee. I will get back to it. As if the material energy says, okay, I won't touch you. I'll wait for you to get back to it. No way. It's amazing how quickly and easily we forget. Just like there you see a 5-year-old child. Can't even remember being born. It was just a few years ago. Can your child remember being born? And how long ago was that? 2.5. But just 2.5 years ago, he went through the most traumatic experience. An experience in his mother's womb that if he didn't have the mercy of Maya in terms of being dimly aware, he wouldn't survive. He couldn't live. Back arched like a bow, cramped up in such a horrible place, month after month. And that was just 2.5 years ago. He can't remember. So we should always understand how much of our life is affected by forgetfulness. And we should never forget that. So please remember the default position of material existence. What is blocking our relishing of Krishna and his service, his name, form, qualities, and pastimes? Unconsciously, we think Krishna is a product of material nature. He's a myth, or he's some kind of icon, some kind of meditational object that the Hare Krishnas have, and they get their buzz from that. Krishna, Krishna. Other people have other objects of meditation, and they get their buzz that way. These are the internal problems that we have to deal with on our way to Krishna. Any questions? Yes.
How specifically does impersonalism affect our dealings with devotees and the way that we deal with the world?
How specifically does impersonalism affect the way we deal with devotees and the world? That's a big topic. You can just like you study chemical engineering, the way technology is going is how to push aside persons and make everything automatic. We think that's advancement. The less persons, the less trouble. Why have workers? Have machines. Why have someone at your home who you can call and say, I'll be late for dinner? Why not just have an app? And your app starts the Instant Pot in your kitchen, cooking. Why do you need someone to contact personally? Hell, I really am sorry, but I'm going to be late for dinner tonight. Why go through all that? Just make it all automatic. Why have someone to greet you when you come home? Why not with your app just start your stereo system playing, and if you're a foolish TV watcher, the TV show is already recording the favorite show that you missed, all with your remote. What do you need people for? Soon it will be, what do you need a partner for? You can have a robot. And indeed, there are persons hard at work producing romantic robots. You didn't know this? Hard at work. Because people are lonely, and it's a lot of trouble if you're an impersonalist to have, even if you're not consciously an impersonalist, just to have a relationship is a lot of work. But your own robot that talks to you is soft and cuddly. Really, it's going on. There's such a great competition. Who can develop the best romantic robots? So you can see impersonalism increasing in the world because people realize dealing with other people is really a pain in the neck. If you just want to gratify your senses, why do you have to undergo the ordeal of a personal relationship? That's what online porn does. This online porn has just decimated the male population. It's not the ladies who are into that stuff mainly, it's the men. They can impersonally fantasize what they see on the screen, and then they become useless for personal relationships because their mind is just taken over by what they saw on the screen, which is complete fantasy done by actors. But you can just be in your own world watching the online porn, and you don't have to deal with anyone else to get the so-called satisfaction. Such a difference in the world this online porn has made, especially India. Because in the way it works, you have to be very concerned about your profile in India. And if you're a pious person, you want to be known for attending the mandir and putting something in the hundi and offering pranams. And you don't want to be known as a raucous guy who has nightlife, right? You don't want to be known for that. Guy who goes to nightclubs and picks up girls, and that's not good for the profile. But with online porn, you can get the worst of Kali Yuga in the privacy of your own room, and then the next day you go to the mandir. Jai Sri Krishna. Right? That's the way it works. The whole world, the male population, is just suffering from this online porn, which is another symptom of impersonalism. We don't want to deal with persons. I don't want to spell it out, but I don't want to go through all the trouble of courting and being nice and having a conversation. It's very expensive. It's very time-consuming. Yes? Oh, really? You don't say. What time is it? The night is getting on. You don't want to go through all that. So what do you want instead? What can you do? Just get on your phone, get on your laptop, and dial up, so to speak, the worst of Kali Yuga. And then pretend you're satisfied. Okay, that's that. Let me go back to working or video games or something. Everything becomes so impersonal. And then you take these same men, and at some point in their life, they want to try to have a real relationship, and they're totally incompetent. They're incapable. They don't know how to deal with another person because they've simply dealt with an online fantasy. So you asked for an example of how impersonalism is affecting the world. I hope I gave it to you. How does it affect our dealings with devotees? We're not sensitive to the diversities present amongst devotees. We want to cancel all that out and just deal with each devotee. We call them Prabhu, but we don't really mean that. We just treat them like they're blocks of wood, names on a list. We don't see them as a learning experience, someone who has something valuable to teach us. A good way to guard against this syndrome is by keeping a record, whether it's an app on your phone. This is how to properly use your phone. Have a habit-forming app and every day you record, did I say something that added to someone's life? Did I do something that added to someone's life? And you tick the box every day. Of course, if you're a book distributor, you're doing that all day long. But for others, even for book distributors, they may forget they're doing the most personal, loving exchange. So overall, it's a good practice to make a daily record. Did I add to someone's life somehow, some way today? It could be your own husband or wife, your own children, but still, You've got to start somewhere. And then expand your sphere of adding to people's lives. It's fun. These are Vaishnava sports. This is how to enjoy. Otherwise, in the name of bhakti, we very easily settle into routine. Oh, it's just Manobiram, you know him. Yeah. It's just so-and-so, Devi Dasi. Madhuri Amrita's having another kid. What else is new? Sachi Sutta, gosh, how many years has he been here? Our attitudes, we don't say it, of course. Especially in New Zealand, you don't say things like that. In Australia, you might say it. Or my Swami has taught me that, he said, the rule in Australia is that what's in the mind comes out on the tongue. And of course, what's the rule in India? What's in the mind never comes out on the tongue, right? And in New Zealand, the rule amongst the Kiwis is be diplomatic, be tactful. So we all have these different ways of being impersonal. And it does take a conscious effort to go the opposite way. Remember, impersonalism is what? The default position in the material world. Anything else? Yes? It's just you.
When we become devotees, we get the knowledge. So when are we going to learn the lesson? At what point do we learn the lesson? We try to enjoy it about Krishna.
Daily hearing and chanting is required. It's not that, okay, I got it last year. I got the point last year. I've already taken so much time to explain today how we're swimming in an ocean of forgetfulness. And the illusory energy takes no vacations. It doesn't give you any break. Oh, you want to slack off in your chanting for a while? I understand. I won't bother you. Good luck. You want to be mechanical about your hearing and chanting, and you expect you're going to be developing attraction for Krishna? Forget it. So if you think I'm trying to make you a bit desperate, you're right. But you'll forget unless you hear this again tomorrow. You'll forget. Can you believe that? You will forget. Right, Letty? This is why our program is Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya, daily hearing. I don't know how long it takes for that point to sink in. It may take us quite a few decades of devotional service before we realize. I've got no immunity that carries me forward from beyond one day. Every day I've got to live so that I can increase my association with Krishna. Without that, how are we ever going to get to the point of the higher levels of bhakti, asakti, and bhava? It's not going to happen. You've got to come to grips with what you're doing right now, where you're at right now. And cry out to Krishna based on where you're at right now. Yearn to go to a higher level. Just like the spirit soul in the womb is crying out. I take shelter. I'm in such a frightful condition of life. I regret my past karmic activities. I repent for them. So that's a subject. This is a subject for another class. How we are coated by indifference, and yet we want love of Krishna. Have you ever been treated indifferently? Often ladies accuse their husbands of being indifferent, right? What does it mean, Gitavali? Huh?
What do you mean, what does it mean? How does it feel?
Yes, how does it feel? She says it feels horrible to be treated indifferently. Oh, Gitavali, you're here every day. What else to do? Yeah, right, sure. Why do I have to listen to you? You don't say that, but why do I have to put up with you? Gosh, can you give me a break? Get out of my life for a couple of weeks? But you can't say that, though. Well, maybe people do say that. That's how we deal with Krishna. Gotta chant. How many rounds? Gosh, Krishna, be glad I'm grinding out 16 rounds. Don't expect anything more from me. Round number 13, 3 to go. Right? And then, I want love of Krishna. Where's my Baba? For devotional service? I did some service last week. But they went out of me. They just make me into roster fodder. I don't want my name on the roster. My resources all belong to Krishna? Oh, come on, we know about that one. We've heard that over and over again. I need everything I have in order to survive. Somehow they never have enough to give anything to Krishna. But Krishna understands. This is indifference. Satisfaction with japa that is not crying out to Krishna. We just feel a sense of false contentment. Well, I actually got my rounds done for today. Wow, hallelujah. I actually did my rounds today. Woo! That's that. It's a done deal. It's like someone saying, it's like Bhadrasena is saying to Gitavali, well, I put up with you today, Haribol. And then Bhadrasena wondered, well, where's the ecstatic love? Well, by the way, we're being so indifferent. And yet we expect so much in spite of our indifference. So at least you have to be aware of that. Remember, impersonalism is... Yes. And that impersonalism manifests as indifference. And we become so accustomed to it. Yeah. No. I'm doing the processes of devotional service. I'm doing the rituals, yeah. I believe in Krishna, yeah. Everything's all right. It's like a married man. I know the statistics in the USA. Of course, in New Zealand, no one practically bothers to get married anymore. But in the USA, I've seen the statistic, 67% of men who undergo a divorce were shocked when their wife asked them for a divorce. 67% of the men didn't know it was coming. And the response is generally the same by the men. I'm doing all the things. I'm taking out the rubbish. I'm fixing stuff around the home. I'm helping to pay the bills. What's the problem? Yeah, I mean, I never talked to her, but, so what, I changed the light bulbs and got the most efficient, energy-saving light bulbs. So this is what we do to Krishna. I'm doing the rituals. I show up for Janmashtami especially. I put a little something in the hundi. I brought some rice and put it on the altar. This is indifference. So how do we feel the urge to push ahead? Often in relationships, it means some crisis happens and you realize, we've got to do something. She's going to leave me. He's going to leave me. I've got to stop complaining so much so that he doesn't find extra hours to stay at work so he doesn't have to come home. Why wait for a crisis? Why not get on yourself now about it? Why am I feeling so casual and indifferent? Like the Bhagavatam says in the second canto, your heart must be steel-framed if you don't break out in ecstasy when chanting. So what's going on with me? You've got to feel that. And then you can start to break out of this encasement of impersonalism manifesting as indifference, even though we're religious believers. How am I living another day with such indifferent japa? I can't believe it. You've got to feel that. And then you can start making some progress. Otherwise, you'll think, I remember when I was a brand new devotee, I was so enthusiastic. Everything was so new and sparkling. Right? And now, what happened? Same old song. This is indifference settling in and coating our life like dust on furniture that hasn't been cleaned. All right. Let us develop some desire to improve our sensitivity to Krishna, which begins with increased sensitivity in hearing and chanting. Even if we don't have that sensitivity, we should at least know it's not there and become desperate to get it. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.